stage. Over to you, Sonal, please.
Thank you so much for this introduction, Xerxes. I'll get to this presentation. So what your family must know is an overview of very basic information, financial, which we need to share with our family. And we need to have, I'm going to talk about under the ambit of personal finance and not get into the legalities. Most of the slides are pretty self-explanatory. Some of the major functions of wealth management are communication, consolidation, wealth creation, and wealth preservation. Today, what I'm going to talk about is communication, matters which need to be communicated with your family. Now, we spend our major adult working life, working, investing, saving, building a future, but fail to communicate with our own family some of these important matters that need to be shared, information that needs to be shared. I honestly do believe that sharing information increases trust and not insecurity. When you share this information, the other person is also empowered and is willing to take on responsibility, and that journey then becomes shared with someone. It is not your journey alone. Coming to the most basic primary documents that we have, we are all aware of all of them, whether it's your passport, your Aadhaar, your PAN card, your election card. Now all of these need to be updated. That means that if you have a minor who's now, entire KYC process needs to be done. Your passport needs to be valid. If you are a frequent traveler, you need 6 months validity to get visa. All of these, where they are kept, they should also be available to everyone, and everybody should know where it is. DigiLocker is a good app to kind of use, so you should take advantage of these things. Secondary documents coming to like club cards, membership details, all your frequent flyer details, club membership. Suppose, if clubs are offering, installment based memberships for your minor children, you shouldn't miss out of all these. So these things should also be communicated with. The accompanying tables that are below are pretty self-explanatory. They just help in organizing information. Coming to insurance, there are two kinds of insurance for personal finance for people like you and me. There's life insurance, and then there's general insurance. Life insurance, the entire purpose of having life insurance is defeated if nobody knows where your policies are and what the details are. Now, there are many kinds of life insurance policies. You have basic term insurance, you have ULIP-based investment-linked insurance, you have money-back endowment policies. You need to make somebody else besides you understand the term of these policies, how they'll flow, what will be the inflow and outflow, whether all these premiums have been updated, who are the nominees, very important, who are the nominees, where are the physical policies kept, and a table showing the entire holding across a family. So that besides you, if need be, somebody is aware of where to retrieve these policies and how to go about making a claim. Coming to general insurance, in the personal finance ambit, you have mainly health insurance, car insurance, property insurance. Health insurance today's time is not something that is a choice. Everyone should have the best possible health insurance you can. But again, here, your family needs to know what sort of insurance you have, whether it's individual, whether it's a group insurance that your company's offered, whether it's a family floater. How is it going to, what are the inclusions, what are the exclusions, is there a waiting period for certain diseases? Again, one of the things I've found is that when we get health insurance and you have a proposal form, very often you don't know what has gone into that proposal form. You have to please declare all your information, your health records, all your information very, very honestly, because you don't want to fight with an insurance company for rejecting a claim. So if you're a smoker, declare that. If you have any pre-existing health problems, declare that, because by and large, when you've taken insurance well in advance, you should not have a problem as the insurance policy term goes ahead. Coming to general insurance, cars, vehicles, you need that insurance. In fact, now if you buy cars, I think they come bundled with insurance. One thing that I wanted to kind of share is that whenever you sell a car or a two-wheeler or a vehicle, make sure that you make sure that the registration card is transferred to the next buyer. Till such time that has not happened, the liability of the vehicle is still yours. Now, of course, we have all these online portals and registration is pretty quick and seamless, but earlier that used to not happen. Coming to the investment side, Indians love we love physical assets like property and gold. Out of that, we'll talk about property for a few minutes. Property is one of the most complicated assets to transfer or to transmit. If you get land, you have to know whether it's agricultural or non-agricultural land. You need a satbara. I remember even a few years back, getting a satbara itself was a task. You need the satbara because you need to know that your title is clear. Now, most states have digitized their land records. So Satbara is also available online. If you're buying a property or a unit in a cooperative society, whether it's commercial or whether it's residential, then you're likely to get a share certificate in that society. Now, generally speaking, a family buys one property in a lifetime, which then becomes more often than not the most valuable investment on the asset side, because it's held for decades together. You must ensure that somebody knows where the purchase document, the original purchase document is kept, where the share certificate is kept along with it. If there is a society and you want to put in a nomination, you put that nomination, and the knowledge copy from the society should also be kept with it. It's a good idea to scan these purchase documents and keep it on the cloud, or whichever way you can, retrieve it easily. Coming to the second most favorite asset class, gold and jewelry, bank locker details. The person who's handling or operating the locker obviously knows where the key is, but it is important that somebody else besides you knows where the key is, whether the locker is held in joint names, whether you've added to a signatory to operate the locker, and where the key is kept. If jewelry is a substantial part of your holding, then it's sometimes a good idea to get a valuation report done from a government approved valuer. Of course, wealth tax is now abolished, but earlier it was required by law to get jewelry valuation reports every 3 years. But the purpose that the valuation report serves is that not only does it give you a valuation, it helps in an inventory, systematic inventory taking. And then you know which item is where, where is it at home, where has it been in the locker, but you get a complete list of what you own. Coming to these financial assets, we'll first talk about low risk investments. FDs, again, is a very favorite mode of investment for Indians. The FD certificates, the actual certificates, who are the nominees, where are they kept? Somebody besides you needs to know where they are kept. Coming to the next bunch, these are all long-term investments, whether it's NSS certificates, senior citizen scheme passbooks, EPF, PPF, all these passbooks, all of them are long-term in nature of holding. You have to make sure they're updated. If they're passbooks, they're updated. If it's a PPF, you have to make sure the account is not frozen and every year you've put in even that minimum 500 rupees or whatever's in force that time. Coming to EPF, your provident fund. Coming to your EPF, earlier it used to be a task to even get your EPF balance and to understand how much was the employer's contribution, employee's contribution, what is the interest that was accrued thereon. But now the EPFO organization has given you a universal account number. So even if you switch jobs, you take the UAN number and that remains common. And now you can fairly easily get your balance and all the details of interest and contributions. Some of these complexities have now been dealt with, but most of them, you still require your physical passbooks, and somebody should know where they are, who are the nominees, and that information should be made available. Now, coming to financial investments, which are of debt funds, mutual funds, equity funds, bank accounts, demat accounts. Again, all this information, how you own each asset, whether it's a demat account or a bank account, how is the mode of operation? Anyone, survivor, joint, single? Are there nominations in place? All of this needs to be shared with somebody besides yourself. In the last decade or two, I've seen the changes that have come in the financial marketplace. And thanks to RBI, SEBI, our regulators, our depositories, we have now a good ecosystem to manage financial investments for a retail investor. NSDL and CDSL are two depositories, and they have a wonderful tool. They send you a monthly ECAS, NSDL, CDSL holding statement. This statement, in one, it gives you an entire snapshot of your holding, the valuation, how you're holding it, whether it's joint, whether it's single, whether whether your KYC is complete, whether your mobile number, email is updated, and who are your nominees, whether you have a nominee registered, whether you don't have a nominee registered, where you think we need attention. Like if you see this one, the NSDL account, there is no nominee registered. And if you wish to, you need to add that nomination. Even in your demat accounts, it will show you which bank account is linked with your demat account for, say, dividend receipts, etc. If you don't get these CDSL statements or NSDL statements on a monthly basis, there's something called a CAS ID, and you can send a mail to them and ask for them. It's a fabulous tool to see a consolidated view of all your financial investments. Now, coming to a fairly recent phenomena of online passwords and login and online security. Increasingly, and this work from home and pandemic has just made it that much clearer for us that all physical transactions, banking, purchasing, all of that is going to become more and more obsolete. Right from opening a bank account, to opening a demat account, to transacting banking transactions, to all the way to filing a return, all of that is possible online. This, of course, comes with its own headache of security, where you have multiple online login and passwords that you got to manage. Now, these again need to be shared. I am not trying to say that we compromise on our security or our privacy when you share these. So, for instance, for online banking, or if you have to refresh your passwords every few periodically, you have to do that. But you have to wait against the practicality of having somebody else know how to go about this. I remember clearly a friend's sister, barely in the 40s, lost her husband, all of a sudden collapsed. And after the initial shock of dealing with the demise, all she was busy with was to deal with your mundane chores of bill payments and things like that. But her biggest block was that she could not get access to his mobile and to his laptop. And it was the husband's mobile number and the email address that was registered for every payment and every account. So while we can kind of honestly, the privacy part is a little overrated, because if you choose to have a mobile phone, really, there's no privacy. So be pragmatic about how you want to share this. You have, of course, a lot of apps that manage all these passwords, which is again password protected, but be clear on how somebody else can access this information in case of emergency. Now, one of our last slides, for which I'll take a little bit of time, is the will. I have no idea why, but it is a very, very sensitive topic in families, and it shouldn't be. First of all, a will is not cast in stone. It can be changed. And if you're one of the few prudent ones who has thought well in advance and has a will, should definitely review it, should definitely change it to suit altered life circumstances. But it is important that you have a will. Not only that, but it is important to make others aware of where you have kept it. Having a will does not mean you have to, talk about the contents of the will with somebody else, but where it's kept and how somebody can access it is definitely something you need to think about. I remember a few years back, a gentleman in his 70s finally decided to have a will. And then once he started at it, he got into the minute details of every asset and how he's held it. And he kept changing, and they were changing the contents of the will. And draft after draft was exchanged between him and his lawyer or chartered accountant or what have you. And it took 2 years. 2 years, this whole thing went on. Drafts kept getting exchanged. In the end, when he passed away, all that his family members could find was a final draft, which was not executed. Now, it was not executed, it was not enforceable, and it was sad because whatever he wanted to do with his assets, he could not. And what happens also is that if you do not have a will, it is very possible that your spouse, and here I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking in stereotypes, but generally it's the male who has control over these things. And by not making a will, it is very likely that he's not securing his older spouse, who's now at an age where she needs to be secured. That is something that you don't want. And I'm not trying to say that if you have a will, you will not have problems, but things that can be avoided, you must. So even having an imperfect will, I would think, is better than having none. Anybody who's run around for a probate or for a succession certificate or for an NOC from multiple family members or what have you, will agree with me that think about it if you don't have a will and get to it. All of this, I've tried to keep my presentation really to the point and short, but all of this, whatever we've discussed, whatever I've talked about, should start making you think about financial goals, like education expenses, marriage expenses, owning property, your retirement corpus, and what is the kind of planning that is required to fulfill these aspirations. Actually, many of these slides individually, like the will, the insurance, the financial planning, all of them deserve separate presentations or separate discussions for each one. But this should definitely make you think about how you're going to map your financial future. Now, most of this is just a very basic overview. Most of us know, I think, everything that I've touched upon. But what happens is that they don't end up sharing. The two primary goals of this presentation, one was, if your family has not had this conversation, maybe it will trigger a conversation. The other goal was that if you've had these conversations, but you just need to kind of get organized in terms of the information sharing, maybe it'll help in organizing yourself to be and also it's not a one-stop, one-time exercise. This, if you share this information periodically, you need to review, you need to kind of make sure that everything is updated. And it's a process. It's not something that you do once and then forget about it. So I'd like to thank Amtoy for giving me this opportunity to have to talk about these things, which I feel really passionately about. Mrunal is missing, and I'd like to thank her, because she's the one who pushed me to doing this and organize myself into getting there. So, success, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mruna. Thank you, Sonal. Excellent presentation and much food for thought. We have a record attendance today. You have broken the glass ceiling by 78 participants. So this really is a topic of great interest. We have never had such a high number.
Glad.
Yeah, I was afraid that we may actually go right up to 100 because my capacity for the Zoom chat is only up to 100. So I was a little worried. There are a few questions, but I have a few of my own because we have some time, and I will come to that. First of all, I would request you to kindly make this presentation available to us if it's okay, and we'll disseminate it to our members. We have recorded this session, so we'll have a YouTube video on this, which we will send it out as well.
Okay, great.
To everyone we can want to. See, one thing is that 2-3 sensitive questions. There are many a times when there is a big joint family and there are issues, live issues. They don't get along. There is large property, wealth at stake. And invariably, everyone is just procrastinating and letting it go by. And then one fine day, when the main person moves on, all hell breaks loose. Wealth disappears, and the families also break up. How can this? I don't know how it can be prevented, but do you have any? It happens all the time. So
the onus. Really, it starts with the patriarch. Unfortunately, we have a patriarchal society. I'd like to kind of. There are no easy fixes for this, but one of the things that I'd want everybody to think about is what happens if you don't deal with these problems in your lifetime. If suppose if you don't have a will, are people aware of what happens if you don't have a will? So if you're a Hindu succession laws are applicable to you. If you're a Muslim, the Shariat Act or the the Muslim succession laws will be applicable. If I know it's a very sensitive topic, but in a kind of situation that you talked about, I don't know how to correct the past, but even the present and the future, when we buy an asset, when we open an account, how are you going to own them, whether singly, jointly, with nominations? That solves half our problems. So in a setup where you already have the wealth and the die is already cast in terms of how it was held, it is only up to the patriarch to not leave behind problems. And more than problems, you're going to destroy any relationships that might be there right now. So not only the money, only lawyers are going to kind of gain
always make money.
But so I'd urge that at the start of getting any asset, owning anything, there should be a certain clarity and consistency on how you want to own these assets. Again, like your will should be in consonance with how you're owning those assets, in the sense that my will might say I want to give everything to my wife, but my demat account says that my child is a joint owner. That operation is not in consonance with your will. So how you own assets is the start of how you will plan for the future. But no, I don't have an answer or any easy fixes for how to deal with current problems, except for honest, conversation.
Communication.
Yeah, and the communication.
So many a times we see also that wives are completely, or the spouse is completely unaware, because they are not because of any other reason, pure laziness, apathy, or comfort level. And I have seen it at close quarters with family and friends, where the wife is less clueless in an event of a tragedy. They had no idea what was happening also, and all of a sudden the whole gamut opens up in front of them. So I think that the spouse has to be kept in the know-how from day one about everything.
Absolutely. And honestly, today with the kind of awareness you have and the education that you have, so the women, I mean, there's no excuse to not take interest. And at the same time, there is no excuse for the husband to not share that information. Even if we take a little more time to get it, we will get there. It isn't as if, it's not rocket science, and it needs to be, you need to patiently explain all these things. And here again, I'm sorry to talk in stereotypes. It could very well be that the wife needs to explain to the husband, whatever, but somebody besides you should know these things. That is the main goal.
Last question from my end, and it's happened from experience or whatever, that bringing about the subject to anyone in your elders in your family or even otherwise of making a will is as you rightly said in your presentation, is an extremely sensitive topic. It sometimes goes completely in the wrong direction, or it really becomes an unpleasant subject. It shows that, makes you out to be sort of a gold digger, you're worried about money. So how do you?
So where I have thought that a chartered accountant, a trusted chartered accountant, or a trusted family another elder besides your own, who you're dealing with, sometimes they play a very, very important role in pushing somebody to get. I mean, I'm not trying to. You should not have to be so circumspect, in the sense that if there is an open channel of communication, even a parent, I mean, even a child, a full grown adult child should be able to talk the parent that please do it to save us. If you have siblings, don't leave behind problems. But yes, I found that if you have a long term relationship with your chartered accountant or a relative, it makes sense to approach them to push the patriarch or to push the person to kind of get a will going.
We have a question from Neha. Is the nominee a legal heir to all the assets?
So I don't want to go into the legalities because nominations for financial assets behave very differently from nominations for house property. But for financial assets, nominees are not the owners. They are a trustee to that asset so that you can transfer the asset in the name of the nominee. But every asset class and every rule is different, so I don't want to go into the legalities. You need to check. Just
Sure.
having nomination is not enough, and yet a nomination allows you the ease of transfer or transmission of the asset into the nominee's name. So for instance, if I had a demat account which was held individually with two nominees, okay, I can with a nominee, it could get transferred to the nominee. But if my will says that it should be divided between two children, so actually it should go to both the children. But as a person has passed away, the demat account can get transferred to the nominee's name, but he's not the actual holder. But like I said, don't quote me on this. Every asset class has different connotations for a nomination.
We have a question from Shashi Tanna. What kind of mutual fund should we invest in?
This is not an investment. This isn't an investment advisory presentation. Shashi, I can meet you personally and
Off the record.
off the record. I'll meet Shashi off the record.
Okay. We have a question from Prashant Popat. How about having a family trust versus will? Very personal question.
So the family trust concept has become extremely relevant right now, especially for family managed businesses. However, for the trust also to kind of to work, every member of the family, suppose it's a joint family, has to be willing to put their assets into the family trust. And management of a trust, honestly, when we explored it, it did not make too much sense unless you have a very, very substantial amount of wealth. Again, it's a newer concept, and the trust concept is more from the inheritance tax scare.
Yes,
that
exactly.
we pay
So that
inheritance.
is the reason why we are all being advised to make family trusts.
But again, you'd have to weigh the pros and cons. We did explore it as a family, and we found that there were certain pros and cons. So again, I don't want to kind of give an advice to something which I'm not clear on. The background and everything, it's case to case.
Okay. We have a question, next one from Hemal Doshi. If there is a single owner for any assets, is it necessary for a second owner or joint account, or is it okay for nominee only?
So yes, if you're a single owner and you have a nominee, it's fine. But again, I want to just qualify that every asset, the way it is owned, nomination, joint holding behaves differently. So it depends on which asset we're talking about. It depends on the operation part of it. As in, like if I have a joint account, let me give you an example. If I have a joint account in DMAT and I have nominations, okay, when one joint account holder passes away, all that the other joint account holder has to do is present a death certificate, and automatically there's a transmission. There's no transfer duty. I mean, there's no transfer charges. There's a transmission automatically into the name of the second joint holder. Now here the nominees don't play a role, because the account gets transferred to the joint holder. It is only in the rare case where both joint holders have passed away at the same time, or then a nominee comes into play. Now in real estate, a nomination plays a very different role compared to financial assets. So there is no one standard solution for the nominee and the joint holding and those questions. You have to go case by case, asset by asset, and please take advice. Pay for that advice, but please take advice.
Absolutely. We tend to sometimes think we know everything, which is not the case.
No, even states have, in property transfer and success. I mean, there are different states who had different rules also.
Very true.
Um, so it isn't. If you asked me, I would not. I would take advice.
Thank you very much, Sonal. I think we are done with the questions. I don't know if anyone else has anything to ask. It has been a very informative session. I would request if anyone has any other questions later on, they can send it to us on mail and we can accordingly then forward it to Sonal for her answers. I would request our president, Mr. Shantanu Bhatkamkar, to sum the session up and give the vote of thanks. Over to you, Shantanu, please. Thanks, Sonal, once again.
Thank you, success. Pleasure.
Thank you, Sonal. Thanks, Xerxes, and also thanks, Mrunal. I think as much as we must work hard, our money and wealth should work hard, and above all, it should go to the right inheritors we want it to go to. There is a big movement now in America and all over the world in medical field. It is called the Checklist Manifesto, and it is led by an American of Indian origin. I think Amtoy can start another movement of checklist. This was a wonderful checklist, Sonal. So maybe an Indian will start another movement for family protection, wealth protection as a checklist manifesto. So write a good book and make this into a movement. Because finally, what is most important turns out to be less in priority, less in urgency. Like in my family, will is not a sensitive issue. My mother's will is ready, registered, and we could discuss it very openly without any sentiments. And with whole family, not just my mother and me. Whereas my draft will is ready and my chartered accountant is delaying it actually, not me. And then it doesn't get the priority it deserves. So that's one thing surely I will go and do is have it ready. And secondly, I think now Google knows everything what we have and government knows everything. It is stupid to hide it from our spouse and family members. Our office staff knows, almost my staff, office staff knows more about me than I know. They have access to all the documents. So this secrecy and privacy are, I think, concepts that are outdated and unnecessary. So thanks for this initiative. And there was a demand for many other things that you should advise people. And you have consolidated my belief that practitioners are more competent than academics and consultants. I've always relied on practitioners than on consultants because we live that. We know what happens actually. So thanks, and good you have associated with Amtoy in another capacity. You have been first lady for some time, but now you have been you have gone beyond our what we call the socializing part of Amtoy. Thanks again, and engage with us in the same manner. And thanks everyone for participation. If you have questions, I think we will share, and we will anonymously share if you don't want your name to be revealed. Thanks everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay well.
Thank you. Thank you.